Hilton, thank you very much for that lovely introduction. Can I first of all acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we gather here today? Can I acknowledge our new President of our Labor Party, Dick Williams? And can I also acknowledge Anthony Chisholm and George Wright? Friends, it's a pleasure and a privilege to be standing before you all today. I'm heartened to see so many here, so many who are prepared to take the fight up, so many who keep the faith, so many prepared to embrace and promote Labor values and Labor principles. This month, Tim Mulherron and I drove through the Central West from Emerald to Longreach on a listening tour, stopping and meeting many, many people along the way. Naturally, we spent a lot of time in Barcaldine, where we enjoyed the hospitality of local branch members, including a barbecue under the stars at the Workers' Heritage Centre. If anyone knows why we are here and why our party endures, go to Barcaldine. See the Tree of Knowledge and the Workers' Heritage Centre. Hear the stories and live the history, our proud history. It's here you will find the birthplace of our party, a proud monument to the Shearers' Strike of 1891 that gave birth to the symbol of our history, a celebration of our grassroots, an enduring reminder that the ALP was born to fight for workers and will always stand up for workers. It is a place that not only shines a light on our past, it also helps us glimpse our future. We also know that 6 years ago this great symbol was poisoned in an act of sabotage. We thought that was it, the end of the road. But a cutting had been taken, so the Tree of Knowledge was reborn. It was cloned and today is thriving. You might draw an analogy here with our crushing election defeat in March this year, a defeat I will touch on in more depth shortly. Because just as the Tree of Knowledge was destroyed and is still undergoing a rebirth, from our crushing election defeat we will regrow. And that's what this weekend is all about. That's what the next 2.5 years are about. Regrouping, reaching out, listening, and working together as one. As I've said before, right now our party is down, but it's not out. Our task is to rebuild our party, reaffirm our values and our principles, and reconnect with the voters who have left us in the past few years. If anyone needs any encouragement to join or support our cause, just consider the recent events from our defeat in March. For the past 6 months, we have witnessed a party and government that does not share our values, that does not share our principles. In fact, it behaves as if it has no values and no principles. We have witnessed a party that promised Queenslanders it would govern with humility, with grace, and with dignity. I'm yet to see any of those characteristics. This is a government that in the space of just 6 short months has been marked by arrogance, by meanness, by cold-heartedness, and by vindictiveness. Those are not the qualities you and I grew up to aspire to. They are not the characteristics that should define our state. They are not what's required to build a future for those of us who live and work here. We know Queenslanders expected better when they went to the polls. They certainly deserve far better. I'm here today to deliver you a simple message and a simple pledge. And it is this: I want our Queensland back.
Hear, hear.
Our strong, fair, compassionate and proud Queensland. And I'm determined that together we will get Queensland back.
Yeah.
Each of us can play a role in achieving that. Each of us who believes in and remains proud of our Labor Party. But we know how difficult the road back to government could be for Labor in Queensland. I've said numerous times it's like climbing Mount Everest. But you know what? People do climb Mount Everest. They do reach their goal, but only after a lot of preparation and hard work along the way. I'm not going to gloss over the events that led to our defeat in March. The cold hard fact is that our parliamentary representation is reduced to a team of 7. The message could not have been clearer. The 7 of us who represent you on the floor of Queensland know that we are small in number, but we are abundant in spirit, in talent and determination. We are a true team in every sense of the word, and each one of us is working to get our Queensland back. Along with my Deputy Leader Tim Mulheron, Curtis Pitt, Joanne Miller, Desley Scott, Bill Byrne and Jackie Trad, I have a determination to rebuild from the ground up. It will involve pounding the pavement and knocking on as many doors as we can get to. It will involve spreading ourselves right across the state, and the 7 of us have already made huge inroads. We are travelling the state and talking to Queenslanders. We will be out there meeting with branch members and union delegates right across Queensland. Our Shadow Cabinet has already been to Ipswich to Rockhampton, traversed the Bruce Highway from Cairns to Bowen, and will soon travel to Mount Isa in November. We are listening and reconnecting with those who felt left behind, even ignored in the lead up to the March election. It's no secret that after a long period in office, we became too wrapped up in governing, and we lost sight of the bigger picture. We stopped listening to Queenslanders, to our party, to our branch members. We simply stopped listening. We stopped listening to many of you in this room here today. To put it another way, perhaps we spent too much time in the boardrooms than we did in Barcaldine. Fundamentally, we breached the trust you placed in us. We let you and others down, and for that I have apologised. So let's start with a clean slate. And the first step to do that is by recruitment. Today I can announce that the Labor Party membership will be reduced to $5 for new members until the end of this year. Additionally, new members will need to have been members for only 6 months before they are eligible to stand as candidates at the next election. If you are someone who is disappointed with this LNP government, the best way to stand up is to join Labor today. If you are someone who has callously been sacked by this LNP government, join Labor today. If you are someone who feels conned by this LNP government, join Labor today. Friends, our best years are ahead of us. The time to sign up is now. The time is to sign up and join the new Labor. The new Labor will involve recruiting as many members as we can locate. It will involve finding and running candidates who are just as determined as our caucus in seats right across Queensland. Candidates who can take the fight up to and get rid of what has swiftly transpired in an uninspiring, stone-cold and untrustworthy government. Let's work together to come up with the new ideas and the strong new policies we need. I want you to spread the message that we want Queenslanders to join the Labor Party. We want people from all walks of life. We want the nurses, the painters, the teachers, the shop assistants, the paramedics, the small business people, electricians and miners to join our ranks. We want to broaden our party base and our connection with members across the state and include them in the next wave of candidates who in 2015 will take the fight up to the incumbent government and stand up for all Queenslanders, stand up for jobs and stand up for our hard-earned values. Friends, we must plan, and in planning our regrowth and our future, we must be inclusive. As we build our party, we must rebuild our policies, and I believe that we must do that with a fresh start, a clean slate. We need to develop and articulate statements about who we are as a party and the values we stand for. I want your ideas, the ideas of branch members. I want to know what your priorities are, and I want that to be reflected in our fresh policies. Party reform is a priority, and it is critical that we get our grassroots involved in growing our party. Friends, it's a new era for us, a new beginning, but that does not mean we abandon our core, our soul. Labor will always stand up for fairness. Our party was founded on the important principle that everybody deserves a fair go in life, and we continue that commitment today. A decent education for Queensland students, no matter their background. Decent health care for Queenslanders, no matter the size of their pay packet. A fundamental requirement for government to provide services. And to provide those services in our community, we need public investment and we need public sector workers. We value the role that teachers have in educating our kids, instilling a love of learning and passion and sense that makes them go and get good jobs and in a meaningful working life. We see the value in Queensland workers who design and build the new hospitals and who support patients in wards and care for the elderly through community health. We recognise the part played by scientists and researchers and support officers who help attract business to this great state and help drive innovation across many industries. We recognise the value of those young Queenslanders being given the chance to take control of their own lives, to learn the dignity of work, to contribute to their workplace, to support their families and to strengthen their communities. We recognise that some in our community fall on hard times and need the support and security that social housing can provide. We recognise that people living with a disability, their families and their carers are not out of line when they ask for a little support. Friends, we retain our core, the fundamental right to work, the basic right to hold down a job so families can be fed, rent and mortgages can be paid, and kids can be sent to school. At our core is the belief that every human being, no matter of race or colour, no matter of religious orientation, no matter of sexual orientation, no matter of educational qualifications, is accorded basic decency. We demand that our society is one in which every Queenslander has a fair go. We believe in equality, opportunity and fairness. We believe in every person having the same opportunity to achieve their goals. We hold to the belief that no one person is better than the person next to him. When we return to government, our first act will to be reinstate employment security and protection that this government has stripped away. And we will do this with the unions, not without. Unlike the LNP, we will act for people with a disability. We would immediately sign up to the National Disability Insurance Scheme. And we will reopen the Tuberculosis Control Centre, so carelessly and thoughtlessly closed down by this government. We recognise the benefits of relatively low-cost programs such as the Skilling Queenslanders for Work. We will reinstate this program. Friends, this is just the beginning. From 6 months on from the election, I'm encountering a Queensland that is sorry. I'm hearing constant apologies. They are from people who tell me how sorry and disappointed they are that they voted for Campbell Newman and the LNP. How sorry and disappointed they are at having put their trust in a party and premier who have breached that trust so soon. How sorry they are to have placed their trust in a government that this week sacked 14,000 public sector workers. Shame, Campbell Newman, shame. Make no mistake. History will record this week's budget as one of the state's darkest and most shameful hours. Queenslanders voted for change, but they are now left stunned, shocked and outraged that they were so clearly and openly deceived. There's a very good reason why 10,000 Queenslanders just this week marched on State Parliament, and thousands more marched in Cairns, in Townsville, in Mackay, in Rockhampton, the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast. They felt deceived by a Premier who gained a record majority, only to start breaking a record number of promises in record time. The Premier they voted for went to the polls looking his own employees in the eye and saying they had nothing to fear from an LNP government. He then set about sacking them, and just yesterday in the Parliament denied he had sacked them. The Premier and the party most Queenslanders voted for never told frontline community groups their funding would be slashed. He didn't tell St Vincent de Paul he would take away funding relief to provide mums to buy baby formula. He didn't tell Vision Australia he would remove their education funding. He didn't tell Healthy Communities programs he'd remove their funding for HIV education. And he didn't tell the Queensland Tuck Shop Association he'd take away their money used to design healthy menus. There were no LNP election pamphlets in the letterboxes of public housing tenants saying a vote for a Newman government meant they faced being kicked out of their homes. Nobody in rural and regional Queensland was told jobs and services would be stripped out of their communities. And nobody expected people with a disability, their families and carers, to have been treated so disgracefully. Our fireys, ambos, nurses and teachers were not told before the election that the Premier and his party had no intention of honouring enterprise bargaining agreements. And if that isn't scary enough, what's coming next? Well, just yesterday, the Shadow Treasurer, Curtis Pitt, the Deputy Tim Mulheron and I met with Peter Costello, the man in charge of the so-called Independent Commission of Audit. He told us over the next 5 months, all 12 government-owned corporations were under review, including electricity companies, including the ports, and including Queensland Rail passenger services. In other words, friends, nothing is off the table. In other words, asset sales. Friends, we will oppose these asset sales. Friends like you, I'm sure the events of the past 5 months fly in the very face of my core values and beliefs. I understand that to a lot of you, I'm a new face. I am a new voice. I'm determined that over the course of this weekend and over the course of the next 2.5 years, as we head towards the next election, that each of you and all of Queensland will get to know me better. And I want to stress to you the reasons why I'm standing here today, why I'm standing strong every day, and why I'll be over the next 30 months driving the Bruce Highway, driving the Sunshine and Gold Coast highways, travelling to Emerald and Roma and Barcaldine and Miles and Warwick and Cooktown and Townsville and Gladstone and Mount Isa and Weipa and Longreach and Goondiwindi and all of those places in between. It's a very simple motivation. I no longer recognise the state I love. I'm horrified and frightened at what my state has become. The horrifying change we have seen over the past 5 months has not dimmed my motivation at all. In fact, quite the opposite. It has made me even more stoic and determined that we must get Queensland back. We must get our Queensland back. Where holding down a job and feeding your kids and paying your rent or mortgage and putting food on the table is a right, not something to be earned, not something that is considered a favour or a privilege. Where going to work each day without fear of the axe falling and the faceless boxman showing you to the door is not the norm. Where the basic services and support for the downtrodden, the disabled, those on the downside of advantage, is a fundamental right and not something that must be earned or begged for. I grew up in a conservative Queensland. I grew up in a Queensland of brown paper bags and shonky deals, and I fear that is where we're heading back to. I don't want that Queensland, just as I'm certain each and every one of you do not. I was proud and remain proud to have been part of a Labor government that, after decades of Conservative rule under Joh Bjelke-Petersen and his National Party, spent 2 decades rebuilding Queensland from the ground up. A Labor government that spent 2 decades creating a free and compassionate and accepting and vibrant, modern and internationally competitive Queensland. A succession of Labor governments that over those 20 years had the foresight to drag Queensland out of the backwater to build a Queensland that was no longer the laughingstock of the rest of this nation. I am determined and I am confident that together we can get Queensland back. I come from strong stock. I come from men and women with conscience and backbone, who in their own way played their role in building the Queensland we live in today. My Polish grandfather, who survived several years in a World War II work camp, came to Queensland as a boilermaker. He pulled himself up by his bootstraps. He was proud to be Australian and proud to be a Queenslander. This led him to distil deeply felt, invaluable, lifeline core values in his kids, values that would stand them in good stead for their entire lives. In turn, his son Henry, my father, who's here today, instilled in his kids my sisters and I, these same strong core values, and most importantly, the value of education. My mother's descendants were the first German settlers in the Boona region several generations ago. My maternal great-grandfather was a blacksmith, so I come from strong men and women. I come from a family which wasn't afraid of a hard day's work, who weren't afraid to roll up their sleeves, who weren't afraid to stand up for themselves, who weren't afraid to teach their kids right from wrong, and who weren't afraid to instil decency and compassion and humility in their families, who in short were determined to give their kids a strong core. I'm proud of my background and my upbringing, probably more proud of that than anything else. And that's the sort of background which I shared with many, many members of our party, which I share with all of you, which stand us in good stead for the battle that we're going to face over the coming months. We have a very long road ahead of us. Our journey on that very long road will lead to our rebirth. I'm looking forward to that journey, looking forward to traversing the state and talking to as many of you and other Queenslanders as possible. I'm looking forward to listening. Each and every one of you, together with Tim and Curtis and Joanne and Desley and Bill and Jackie and I, we can get our Queensland back. I ask you and I encourage you to spread the word, to help us swell our party ranks, to get in touch with each and every Queenslander who already feels thwarted and betrayed, to get them to join with us. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, we are presented with a tough yet unique, perhaps once-in-a-generation opportunity. We are presented with the opportunity to bring our movement and our belief and our philosophies back from the brink. We are presented with the opportunity to rebuild and re-establish ourselves. We are presented with the opportunity to renew ourselves and take Queensland with us. We are presented with the opportunity for rebirth. We must seize that opportunity. I ask you to come with us. I ask you to seize Queensland back. Together we must fight the good fight. Together we must stand tall and stand proud and stand strong. Together we can rebuild. Together we can unseat a deeply cynical, deeply flawed, deeply unpopular Premier and his government and reclaim the Queensland each and every one of us wants back. Friends, join me.